everybody. My name is Phillip Shepard. I'm a local real estate agent located right here in Northwest Arkansas. And today we're talking about a question that I've been asked so many times. What are some of the differences between Beaver Lake and Bella Vista Lakes? So let's talk about that. But before we begin, if you like and share this video with a friend or family, that would make the world of difference. I try to produce as much content as humanly possible about Northwest Arkansas, obviously. So liking and also sharing, just make sure that everyone can live, work, and play all in NWA. So thanks a lot, guys. I appreciate it. Also, if you haven't been down to Northwest Arkansas quite yet, I made something called the NWA Starter Pack. Sounds exactly what it is. Literally a starter pack full of all the cool things in Northwest Arkansas. What are the hospitals like? What are the schools like? What's going on in downtown Bentonville? What's going on in downtown Fayetteville? What are all the cool things happening in Northwest Arkansas packaged into a little box, shipped right to your home. So enter your name below, your address, where can I ship this box to? Full of all the cool things, all your answers, all your wildest dreams about Northwest Arkansas into a little package right to your home. So enter your name below, I'll make sure they get the package shipped to you right away. Also, side note, it does come with your first free mountain bike, so that's pretty cool, but I'm a little biased, obviously. And. I know what you're thinking. It is my favorite four-letter F word. Free! So enter your information below, I'll make sure they get the package shipped to you right away. All right, so this is like a little bit of an intro part before we get into the more details of the differences between Bella Vista Lakes and also Beaver Lake. But I have a lot of clients, obviously, that are asking me, they want to buy lakefront property or be near the lakes around Northwest Arkansas. Now, Northwest Arkansas is really kind of two centers of lakes. We have Bella Vista Lakes, there's 7 lakes up there. 3 of them are actual like wake lakes, meaning you actually put boats on there and do the whole thing. The other ones are no wake lakes. Now, Beaver Lake is obviously the other lake section, we'll call it. And that is, on the far east side of Northwest Arkansas, and that is a massive lake. So there are differences, and we'll talk about each one of those. But a lot of times my clients ask me, like, we want lakefront property, we want to be near the lake. And now we're gonna talk about some of those both things, differences between the two, and then let's jump right into it. And the first thing we need to talk about when it comes to differences between Beaver Lake and also actual Bella Vista Lakes, first off, is the size. The size of Beaver Lake is just massive compared to actual Bella Vista Lakes in general. So again, like I said before, Bella Vista has 7 lakes. 3 lakes are like wake, like you can put boats there, and the other 4 are not wake. You're allowed to like actually put wake on there. Now Beaver Lake is fully all wake, of course. Now it is massive because it's almost like 40, almost 50 miles of actual pure of like square footage miles. Plus, on top of that, it actually goes farther south. Usually Beaver Lake stops a little bit farther down, but there's obviously a river that runs farther down that's very wide. So people a lot of times will buy riverfront property, but it's technically Beaver Lake property. So just the size of Beaver Lake is massive. It's one of those lakes where you're not gonna have any issues of like getting near people, plenty of space to spread out, all the different things. So Beaver Lake is definitely by far the biggest lake, obviously, in the whole area. Now Bella Vista Lakes, they have several different lakes, and I would consider the 3 of them that are wake are decent sized. They're not massive, but you'll have a plenty of space out there. The thing that's different about Bella Vista, and we'll talk about this in a little bit when it comes to size, is the fact that only Bella Vista residents are allowed to be on those lakes in general. So you don't have like a lot of Northwest Arkansas drawing there because it's only Bella Vista people allowed there. So that's one of the perks when it comes to size-wise, is that you kind of get the best of both worlds because you have massive Beaver Lake on the east side and you have the 7 different lakes on actual Bella Vista, but only residents are allowed to be up there. And number 2 of differences between Beaver Lake and also Bella Vista Lakes, and this is probably one of the biggest factors I always talk about when it comes to clients moving to the area when it comes to lakefront property, is the distance from things. So if you want to be near the trail systems around, like obviously Bentonville, Beaver Lake, if you have property out there, it is a little bit of a drive, no matter what. It will be a challenging drive from Beaver Lake to Bentonville or even Bella Vista for the back 40 trails. Anything around there. Now, side note, there are a lot of trail systems when it comes to around downtown Rogers, as well as Hobbs State Park, which might be actually closer to you. Hobbs State Park is actually on farther east past Beaver Lake, and that's when you start getting into War Eagle territory, like all those big trails out there. So that's end of side note. But if you're looking for kind of things to do, it is gonna be a distance away. We're talking about 45 minutes sometimes, depending where you end up in Beaver Lake. It could be a drive from there to things to do. Now, downtown Rogers is right there, but when it comes to main hub stuff, Crystal Bridges, big musicians, obviously a lot of shopping, that's gonna be about a 45-minute drive. But obviously when in comparison to Bella Vista Lakes, you're living in the muck of it all. You're right there. So it's really cool because obviously Bella Vista, back 40 trail systems, Little Sugar, you're just maybe a couple hopscotch minutes away from actually downtown Bentonville. So it's really cool to see the differences there. So definitely Beaver Lake is definitely, you want to be like true lakefront. You go out there in the woods, out there, and there is a little bit of distance between things to do, and also like obviously Bella Vista Lakes, whereas Bella Vista is definitely more, you're in the midst of everything right around there. Whoa, before we jump on to the next point, I have something brand new called Instant Home Updates. So maybe you're looking to move down to Northwest Arkansas and you're using things like Realtor.com, Zillow.com, Redfin. Way too slow. Notifications, way too slow. That's why I made something called Instant Home Updates, and it sounds exactly what it is. It's literally Instant Home Updates. So enter your information below: name, square footage, bedrooms, bathrooms, all the things you're looking for when it comes to Northwest Arkansas, when it comes to moving here. All the information below. I'll make sure that I get those notifications set up for you right away. I'll make sure you don't miss a single notification for both for homes for rent or for sale, all in Northwest Arkansas. Also, side note, every single Friday I send an email out just kind of talking about all the cool things Northwest Arkansas. What's going on in downtown Bentonville? What's going on in downtown Fayetteville? When is First Fridays? When is First Thursday? What new HQs are moving here? What new things are coming to Northwest Arkansas? All the new restaurants, all the things, all the time. So enter your information below. I'll make sure you get that email every single Friday. But side note, you will get a little fear of missing out, little FOMO, so to speak. But I promise you will be the most informed person eventually when you make your way down to Northwest Arkansas. And number 3 of differences between Beaver Lake as well as Bella Vista Lakes. Now we're gonna talk about slips. Slips. Now, side note about Beaver Lake, they do not allow any more actual slips to be given, we'll call them basically permits to be slips on property anymore. The actual Beaver Lake is owned and controlled by the Army Corps of Engineers, and the actual Beaver Lake definitely is the main source of water for Northwest Arkansas. The Army Corps controls all of that. They are the providers, obviously, for the water system out here, so they don't want any more slips on actual property in Beaver Lake itself, but you can rent a slip in Beaver Lake from the one in marinas. Now, obviously, you have to get there early, make sure you get the slip, meaning in the beginning of the year, I'm sure you rent it beforehand, etc. So there are slips available, but it's one of those things where you just have to be ready for that and probably pay some money, obviously, to make sure you get a slip available in Beaver Lake. So that's one of the differences between Beaver Lake. Now, Bella Vista Lake, again, there are slips up there. The nice thing is with Bella Vista is the fact that you, obviously, if you live in Bella Vista, most likely you're within 10 minutes or less from dropping your boat off into a slip, or obviously dropping your boat off into one of the lakes there. So you are allowed to have slips there, of course, and you're obviously paid for them, of course. But the nice thing with Bella Vista, if you don't have lakefront property right there, if you don't own that necessarily, you can get a slip in Bella Vista. But the nice thing is that obviously you can just drive right to one of the marinas and obviously one of the lake drop-offs and just go right there. Whereas Beaver Lake, it can be a little bit more challenge to find a drop-off point for your boat because Beaver Lake has a lot of this sometimes. So that's something to be aware of, is that Beaver Lake definitely has a lot more interesting roads around, and we'll talk about that in a little bit. But Beaver Lake might be a little more of a challenge, but depends on where you end up in Beaver Lake. But Bella Vista is definitely a bit more easier when it comes to dropping boats off and getting slips over there. And number 4 of the differences between Beaver Lake as well as Bella Vista Lakes, and this is probably one of the biggest ones, similar to the distance, is the HOA. Now, there is an HOA attached to Bella Vista, and obviously, people have their thoughts on HOAs. My personal view of Bella Vista's HOA is a lot different than I came from Chicago. HOAs are really intense over there, but down here in Bella Vista, I would consider very mild. Basically, what they want to do is make sure that everyone's homes are kept up to modern stability across the whole area. For instance, I always tell people they don't want people painting their houses pink. They don't want people using barbed wire for fencing. I would consider basic stuff to set the standard across the board for what Bella Vista is. I don't consider their standards very very extreme. If you build a garage, you build a building, they want to make sure that the actual building is in the likeness of the home itself. I get those things. I understand those things. Make sense. Beaver Lake, on the other hand, it is a Wild West a little bit out there. There are a decent amount of subdivisions that have covenants and restrictions and HOAs built into it. Those are usually lakefront properties, and they obviously hit the standard of what that is. Usually certain size square foot homes, certain land size, certain expectations, certain siding. There are those out there, but obviously those homes run a little higher price, to say the least. But those are out in Beaver Lake because if you ever take a trip out to Beaver Lake and you kind of get in some back roads, it's a little bit of a Wild West out there sometimes. That's why land developers in the past, last 20 years or so, have bought land and actually put on covenants and restrictions and HOAs to make sure that when people enter into the subdivision, when it comes to around Beaver Lake area, it's more standardized out there. But again, if you are buying some lakefront property or want to be near the lake around Beaver Lake, it's kind of a mixed bag because there is no HOA, there's no standards. It's kind of the Wild West out there a little bit. Great for people that just want to be tucked away in, we'll consider not the middle of nowhere, but definitely tucked away and near the lake. But again, just be aware, there's no HOA. You might end up with some interesting houses around the area. But if you end up in a subdivision around Beaver Lake that has, I would consider, more covenants and HOAs and restrictions, and definitely a higher price tag, it's one of those things to be aware of when you're out in Beaver Lake. Those places exist, but they definitely come with a higher price tag. And number 5 of a difference between Bella Vista Lakes as well as Beaver Lake, and this is, I kind of mentioned this before, but there is a difference of land and home prices between the two. There is a sheer difference. The home prices oftentimes in Beaver Lake, especially when you get closer to water, and you get part of those subdivisions, those HOAs, those kind of specific areas in Beaver Lake, will always be more expensive, hands down, than Bella Vista Lakes. And the reason being is because oftentimes in the HOAs and those kind of homes around Beaver Lake are very specific. They have certain home square footage size, like over 3,000 square feet. They're very nice. They're usually lake viewing. Sometimes they're lake front. And the other part of the reason why Beaver Lake homes are more expensive when it comes to lake, closer to lake style, is because the fact they actually, some of those homes, I shouldn't say most, some of those homes actually have permits for slips on Beaver Lake in general. Now, again, before my other video, the Army Corps Engineer does not allow any more permits to be put on for lakefront for homes over there. So if you have a house that has a permit for an actual like slip, it will drive the price quite a bit higher because there's really no more for the foreseeable future. So just know that if you see a very, very expensive home on Beaver Lake, usually lakefront, and it's very high priced, just know this because it has probably a permit for a slip, and it is what it is. Little side note, you can actually purchase land with a slip permit and buy a house that's on the lake without a slip like permit, and then transfer the slip permit from one land to the house. That has been done before. So just be aware that is an option, a very expensive option, but it can be done for sure. And then going back to the Bella Vista side of home prices, Bella Vista prices are, when it comes to lakefronts or lakes itself, a little different and probably a lot less than Beaver Lake because there's not as many lakefront properties in Bella Vista Lakes because there's not as much miles of square footage of lakes itself. But the nice thing is that it's so easy access in Bella Vista to get your boats to the lake itself that you don't necessarily need a lakefront all the time. So obviously there are lakefronts out there, they sell, enough a year. There's not a whole lot of them, but just be aware that there are less lakefronts in Bella Vista Lakes versus Beaver Lake. But the Bella Vista Lakes are a lot more, I would consider, affordable than Beaver Lake homes. But a lot of times people that end up in Bella Vista Lakes around the whole area usually have boats, and it's easy access to get to the actual water itself. All right, that's all I have for you guys today. Again, if you are thinking about coming down to Northwest Arkansas, download my 3-day itinerary link below. Maybe you're a adventurer, maybe you're a sports person, maybe you're a foodie, maybe you're a sightseer, maybe you have kids, whatever it is. There's a 3-day itinerary link down below for you. So go ahead and download it and use it when you come down here. Also, when you come down here, I can give you the $10 tour so I can kind of show you around the whole area. Plus, we can check out some homes for sale or for rent and see how far your dollar will go in Northwest Arkansas compared to where you're coming from. All right, guys, let's see you next one.